Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and in a change of the advertised video we will be not going through the event pack today. I'm going to save that for next week because I have had a sneaky idea for a new scenario as suggested by General Dan, so I'm going to get that sorted. But in the meantime, I thought we would look at my top 5. Now, anyone who has seen any of my top 5 videos before will know that there's probably going to be more than 5 entries in this, but it's my top 5 minor nations to collect. Now, this is not necessarily done on history-wise. This is done on the availability of miniatures, how much fun I think they are going to be to build and paint, and maybe do some conversions, and how useful they're going to be on the tabletop against various opponents. I don't necessarily mean like the quality of the army-wise, but I'll explain more when we get to it, I think. So, a quick caveat to start us off. What is a minor nation? Well, it's any of the nations that took part in the Napoleonic Wars that aren't in the 6 major nations. So, that sounds a little basic, I suppose. But your 6 major nations are, of course, France, and then the quote, allies. You would have Britain, Austria, Prussia, Russia, and I include Spain as one of the big 6 as well. Now, some people might not, but I'm going to include it as one of the big 6. So we are not including any of those nations in this video. Now, the reason is that those nations are all usually pretty well served by different manufacturers, and I've done a whole series of start collecting videos on those, so you can check those out for the major nations, and I've done some of the minor ones as well. Now, some of you may consider other nations to be major ones, and hopefully we'll talk about those as we come onto it. But if there's any of the major nations you think I've missed out, then let me know in the comments down below. I guess what makes a major or a minor nation in the Napoleonic Wars could be a whole video in itself, and indeed one day it may well be. So we're going to leave it there for now, and as I say, the 6 major nations that we're not going to be talking about are Britain, Russia, Spain, France, Prussia, and Austria. So we won't be talking about those. So I am going to start off, as is tradition, with an honourable mention. Now, another nation I'm not going to be mentioning here, and it's one that could be classed as a middle nation as opposed to a major or a minor, and that is the Kingdom of Italy. Now, the reason I'm not going to be covering this, some of you viewers of the live streams will know, and some others may know, that I am actually working on an Italian army at the moment. So it's not that I don't like the Italians or anything like that, but the reason is because figures-wise, they're basically just French painted white. So the reason I'm not including them is not because they're not a great minor nation to collect. In fact, arguably they are absolutely the best one to collect, because they are just by the French army, paint it white instead of blue, you got yourself an Italian army. But so because of that, I'm not including it on this list because it's just a little bit too obvious. So don't think that I'm ignoring Italy. Don't think that I'm thinking it's a bad minor nation to collect. The reason it's not on this list is because of the exact opposite of that. It's probably one of the best to collect. It's one of the easiest to collect because it is just a French army with a different skin. So for that reason, I'm not going to be talking about Italy in this video. But anyone who wants something to have a little bit different, Italy is absolutely a number 1 choice. So starting off down in place number 5, I'm going to say the 5th best minor nation to collect is going to be the Brunswickers. Now, the Brunswickers are an interesting one in that there are 2 versions of them. You've got the Brunswick Uels, who fought in the peninsula. Now, it's only really about a single battalion of those. It's actually quite a big battalion. It was 12 companies. But basically, there's only a battalion, and they didn't fight together. So the ones that we're looking at here are the Brunswickers of 1814 to 1815. These are the guys who fought under the Duke of Brunswick, and they fought in the Waterloo or the 100 Days campaign. Now, why do I say these are down in 5th place? Well, there are a number of reasons. The first one is they have a pretty unique uniform, so that brings them onto the list in the first. I'll tell you what, we'll start with the positives, and then we'll get to the reasons why they're not higher. So the positives are they have a pretty unique uniform. Painting black is, some people say it's really difficult. Those people, I think, are wrong. It's really easy. You get the model, you get some black Templar paint, and you slap it on. job's a good one. What I would probably do, though, is I would undercoat them with either a bone or a grey, probably a bone, and then I would re-undercoat the straps with a white, and then I would go with Black Templar over the whole thing. The white on the straps is going to make the black there look slightly different to the cream. Another way you could go is you could go grey on the uniform, and then a brown on the straps, like a desert brown. And again, that would just allow, give it a sort of browny black texture, which makes it, I suppose, look a bit like leather. So that's how I'd paint them. Don't overcomplicate it. Brunswickers, another positive is they're really easy to paint, as suggested just there. But as I say, they are quite unique with their different styles of uniforms. You could probably make them out of Prussians, to be honest, but their shakos are quite different. And I really, really like I'm certain that it has a technical term. I don't know what it is, though, I'm afraid. But the lead battalion it's like a falling plume. I don't know what it's called, but it looks absolutely awesome. It's pretty unique for this time. You would see them. You see them on like marching bands and stuff in America now, but they're pretty much the only unit I can think of at this time that had plumes that way. That's the positives out of the way. What are the negatives? Well, the negatives is they're only really useful for 1815. If you and your group want to do a campaign or a war that's set in an earlier period of the Napoleonic Wars, throw them in. You know, who cares, really? As long as you're getting your men on the tabletop and you're fighting 1806 Prussians, does it really matter? Not really, no. But if you are wanting to be historically accurate, then yes, 1815 is pretty much the top and bottom of their what you can use them for. The second thing is there are no plastic manufacturers out there yet, so you're going to have to go metal, and it's going to come out quite expensive quite quickly. So one of the things that I wanted to look at in this video is the availability of these minor nations in plastic, because that's a much cheaper material and a lot of people don't like working with metal. To be honest, a lot of people don't like working with plastic because you have to build the models, and they'd rather just have a single piece model that they can get straight on with the painting. So I can appreciate that too. But for me, price is quite an important part of the collecting. It's not that I'm cheap, I want to spend less. It's that I'd rather have 3 times as much. So for me, plastic is a big thing, and there are no plastic Brunswickers out there at the moment that I know of anyway. There are files from Wargames Atlantic, so you can print them, and that will of course bring the price down, but you need to know someone or have yourself furnished with a 3D printer in of itself. So I'm not going to talk about that yet. I am going to talk about printed options later, but at the moment, one of the big downsides with the Brunswickers is they are limited against who they can fight historically. You're looking at the 100 Days campaign, and they fight for the British against the French, and you are looking at there being a distinct lack of plastic models out there, making them quite expensive. That said, if you're looking for a small force to get you started, and you either prefer metals or you don't mind working with it, then Brunswickers absolutely get the seal of approval for me, and that's why they're my 5th best minor nation to collect. So with 5th place out of the way, we move on to 4th place. Now this one I hope is going to be maybe not controversial, but maybe a surprise to some people, because I think it's maybe one that people don't necessarily think of, and it's going to be the Saxons. Now the Saxons are quite an interesting, they're an interesting army of the Napoleonic Wars. They fought for the Prussians in 1806, and they ended up fighting for the French later on. And they later on, they started fighting for the Allies. Now, this is one of the most important reasons why I'm recommending this army as a good one to start off with, as a minor power, and that is they can fight on either side. Now, I wouldn't go for the 1806 Saxons unless you were particularly wanting to do that period. Now, that said, I'm very tempted to collect 1806 Saxons, because they still wore those uniforms in 1809, and it means that you can bring a real sense of the 7 Years' War into your Napoleonic battlefield. Now, in 1809, they were fighting for the French, of course, so you've got an army that can fight for the coalition forces alongside the Prussians in 1806, although I wouldn't collect that army, who fought alongside the French in 1809, 1812, and then later 1814, 1813 and 14, who fought for the coalition again back against Napoleon. So that's really, really useful. If you're down at a club or your friend has only got French, Saxons are great. You can fight against the French, you can fight against the British or whoever just as easily, certainly against the Austrians and the Russians. Now, the reason I've gone for the Saxons is, again, well, in reverse to the Brunswickers, I'll start with the negative on this one. There are no plastic Saxons yet. Let me come back to that in a bit. I've not heard any rumours, but I have strong suspicions. So there are no Saxons in plastic. However, you can use other models and convert them into plastic soldiers. Infantry-wise, I would be tempted just to use French infantry. Cavalry-wise, you can convert them out of French, the Saxon cuirassiers, who famously attacked the Great Redoubt at Borodino. You can convert those out of the Perrys, plastic cuirassiers, fairly easily. I made some. All I did was I basically built carabiniers and then just painted them with steel armor as opposed to the brass of the carabiniers. And then you know any cloth and stuff you make buff. I think those weird like fringes that they've got, the French have got. They're like red with white piping. I think I shaved those off as well. But apart from that, yeah, you're pretty much good to go. Now, famously, of course, the Garde du Corps, they didn't wear their breastplates at Borodino, but you know what? In every other battle they did. So just have your Garde du Corps with their breastplates on. That's absolutely fine. I don't know why manufacturers insist on not making them, but there you go. Now, one thing that I would say about spending the money on the metals for them is if you want to go for the specialist unit, so if you want to go for the Saxon Garde du Corps or the cuirassiers specifically, there are some beautiful miniatures out there. Eureka are, for me, the absolute gold standard when it comes to metal cavalry, and their Saxons are absolutely gorgeous. The ones at rest, the ones charging, both of them absolutely beautiful. Luckily, there are 2 Saxon cuirassier regiments, so you can have one of each. But be advised, they are very, very expensive. Very expensive. And there's also a company which I don't really talk much about on this channel, which is a shame because they're a good company and they do some absolutely gorgeous minis, and that is Black Hussar Miniatures. Now, they are based in Germany, so with the EU sanctions, well, not sanctions, but EU tariffs and all that kind of crazy stuff, they can be quite expensive. But they are absolutely gorgeous, really, really nice. And their Guard in particular are fantastic. Now, I'm not sure the Saxon Guard actually fought. They might. I don't think they did. I don't think they went on campaign, but they are absolutely gorgeous. And I would highly recommend that if you're doing Saxons, you get yourself a regiment of them. You don't have to, of course. You can just use plastic Imperial Guard from Victrix. Would be another way to go. But no, I think for me, if you're going to do an army like Saxons, it's not going to be a huge army. You can probably splash out on a battalion, and you can get yourself going that way. They also do. Did I actually mention? Yeah, I did. Yeah, sorry, Black Hussar Miniatures. Yes, they also do a really nice command set as well, which is very nice. I would suggest though, so they're quite different from the French. You could probably use a Russian or an Austrian command group from the Perrys or Piano Miniatures, someone like that, and you'd get basically the same look. You could even look at some Bavarian miniatures as well. And as a special heads up, we might be doing that later. So that would be my number 4th choice. It would be the Saxons. Not the ones with the axes and the kite shields, but they're pretty cool as well. But not the 1806 ones, 1809, 1810 onwards. You can basically make them out of French infantry. French cavalry you can use a lot. You can also throw in some Europeans as well. So there you have it. The Saxons are my number 4 pick. Now we're into the podium positions, and in third place, another army which I think doesn't see enough love on the tabletop, and it's a shame because it's a fantastic looking army. I think it's one of the nicest looking armies of the period, and it is the Portuguese. Now, the Portuguese are an interesting army because they often fought alongside the Brits, but they did have their own armies as well, and they have some options available to them for plastic. Now, I would say that the Warlord Portuguese, a lot of people don't particularly like Warlord miniatures. When it comes to their Portuguese, those people could not be more wrong. They are absolutely gorgeous minis. I like them. The only downside, and I'm just checking to see if this has changed, because I don't believe it has, but if I say something and it has changed, then I'll look a bit silly, won't I? So, the thing I'm just checking is, when the battalion that I bought were plastic bodies and metal heads. So, I'm just checking to see if that's still the case. No, I don't think it is. So, it looks like they're plastic heads now. But when I bought them, they were metal heads. So, now they're all plastic. There is absolutely no problems with them. They are a great-looking army. What I really like about them is the two different colours. The yellow, red, and blue and white of their regimental colours are absolutely gorgeous. The dark blue contrasting with the white trousers look really good, and the jackets are of quite a high-waisted style. So you don't have to mess around too much with turnbacks and things like that. The turnbacks are just a thin red line across the front, and then they go to smaller turnbacks on the side. Now, the Portuguese are a great-looking army. Now, why are they in third place? I have waxed lyrical about them. Why are they so low down? Well, the reason is that you get your 24 plastic Portugueses, and they are £27.50 from Warlords. That's actually quite expensive. I'm just doing quick maths in my head. The Perrys are £8 a pack, or £8.50 a pack, I think they might be now. £8.50, so that's £17.34. So it's about £7 cheaper than buying the same number of models in metal. But that said, you can get the plastic Perrys at a discount. The plastic Warlord at a discount from quite a few third-party sellers, and I absolutely would do that. So the Portuguese infantry, we've got that weighed off. That's all gravy. What about the cavalry? Now, there are no plastic Portuguese cavalry options out there specifically for them. However, you can very easily use British Light Dragoons, give them tarletans, because of course you do, and you end up with some Portuguese cavalry with a different paint job. Similarly, Cazadores, the light infantry, you can buy, in fact, I have bought and used the Wargames Atlantic rifles, or you can get some plastic ones from the Perrys, and you can paint them up in their brown uniforms, and you got yourself some Cazadore. You don't need too many of them, so probably a pack of rifles from the Perrys, and you're good to go. They were all of the Portuguese cavalry regiments were classed as dragoons, and this comes as one of the downsides for the Portuguese, and that is they are all a bit samey, unfortunately. They are, they've got different facings and things like that, but their uniforms are all dark blue with white trousers. That goes for cavalry and infantry as well. Cazadore is slightly different. They tended to have brown uniforms. Again, they've got some nice yellow, red, sky blue facings. They're pretty cool. But you're going to be painting the same models a lot of times, basically. You're going to be painting a lot of dark blue and a lot of white. And if you don't want to paint those two colours, Portuguese probably aren't for you. The other thing is that, again, if you want to be historically accurate, you are slightly limiting yourself to the Peninsular Campaign, of course. And the Portuguese are not really going to fight against the British or the Spanish. Well, I guess you could have them fighting the Spanish. But, historically accurate-wise, they are very much on the coalition side. They're certainly not going to be fighting for the French or alongside the French anytime soon. Obviously, as it goes with all these things, if you're having a 2v2 down at the club and your teammate has a French army, your opponent's got British and Russians, absolutely throw them down, go large. This is really important. And when I'm saying like you can't fight them against Austrians, for argument's sake, I am saying that from a historical basis. On the tabletop, I actively encourage people to go wild and fight armies that they wouldn't necessarily fight in normal history. It's weird. I mean, like, I see people playing DBA. I saw a game of DBA recently, and it was Swiss 15th century pikes and crossbows and all that good stuff. And they were fighting some Romano-British. And no one bats an eye when it comes to DBA. But when it comes to Napoleonics, suddenly it's like a big thing. So don't worry about that. But what I would say is if you are wanting to have an army that you can use in a wide variety of historically accurate settings, the Portuguese, probably not the top of that list, I wouldn't say. Now we're going into second place, the runner-up. Now I've realised that actually I haven't had any joint spots in this one. So, I get there's going to be a spoiler. There's going to be one joint spot. Is it going to be a joint second place or is it going to be a joint first place? Well, in second place is the army of Bavaria. Now, the Bavarians are an interesting army. They are a fun army. I absolutely love the Bavarians. For me, Bavarians are like fun Germans. So the Bavarians, I mean, like, in my head, the Prussians are like, right, come on, Bavaria, it's time to go to war. And Bavaria's like, but it's like beer festival time. No, leave the beer. It's wartime. Okay. But we'll be finished for sausage festival time, won't we? Nope. No. This is going to be a big war. You're not going to need your beer. You're not going to need your sausages. It's time to go to war. Okay, Prussia. After beer and sausages. That's how I see Bavaria. So for me, I've got a real love of. I should point out as well, this may bear absolutely no relationship to the truth whatsoever, but no, I absolutely love Bavaria. Now, one of the things that I really like about Bavaria Napoleonically, I mentioned this with the fourth place, the Saxons, is that they fight for both sides. So you've got Bavarians who are fighting independently of French armies in 1809. You've got Bavarian armies that are fighting as part of the French army. 1812 would be a great example of that. And you've got the you've got the Bavarians fighting against the French in 1814. Most famously against Napoleon himself at Hanau. So you've got the full gamut there. They can go for so you can use them historically accurately for either side, or, as I say, completely independently as well. Now, one of the things that I really like about the nations I've mentioned so far is that, and I should have put this as a plus in all of their columns, is that you can actually reasonably collect the entire army. If someone said, I want to collect the entire French Napoleonic army, I think they would struggle. But you could very easily collect the complete Saxon army or a complete Portuguese army. The Portuguese probably the biggest of the ones I mentioned so far. Now, the Bavarians, you could do that. You'd be collecting a lot of models, but they had their own separate corps. I think it was the 9th Corps, so you could very easily collect a corps worth of Bavarians. And you can throw in some allied troops there as well, so that breaks up the painting a little bit. Now, one of the things I really like of the Bavarians on the tabletop is they are unique. They've got the Das Rupenhelm, and it's got another name as well. The later one is just not as fun as Rupenhelm. You can look. Anyone who knows anything about Napoleonics or knows an amount about Napoleonics will be able to look across the tabletop, see the Bavarians, and they'll be able to instantly recognise them because of Das Rupenhelm. Now, they've also got the light blue jackets as well, which look really good. And the other thing I really like about the Bavarians, and it's something that has spurred me to get an army of them, is the colours. I really like those like white and blue lozenge flags that they have. They look absolutely awesome. The obvious thing would be to have them aligned sort of up and down and left and right, but they're not. They're at like a crazy angle. They look absolutely fantastic. They're great on the tabletop. I love the Bavarians. I think they're a really, really cool army. But what makes them in second place on this list? Well, the first thing is they are available in plastic for their infantry. And that's good, because I had quite a lot of it. One of the problems you're going to have, though, is their cavalry. Their cavalry is not so well furnished in plastics, unfortunately. You are going to be looking at majority metal. Now, one of the problems is with them is those funny hats. You can't really get away with converting too much because of the hats. Now, one thing that I would say, however, is that if you buy the Victrix ones in particular, you are going to end up with an absolute boatload of spare heads. They always give you tons of heads in their sets. So, you know, that is quite handy. I mean, a set of 58 of them is £35 for the infantry, which I think is pretty reasonable. And you end up with, as I say, absolutely uggins of heads. Now, you could use Austrian heads to convert you guys, but I probably wouldn't. I'd probably stick with the old Bavarian ones. I'm just looking at a sprue now, and on a sprue of 6 men, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 heads. So you get nearly twice as many heads as you need. I suspect that they are for different... No, they're not for different periods. They're just different heads. I guess some of them are going to have moustaches and things like that for the elite companies. And that's perfect. You can get yourself some European cavalry. Now, by European cavalry, I mean from the Perrys. That's their Austro-Russian sets. And you can go absolutely large, sticking the heads on them, and you're good to go. Now, one of the things that's not going to be the same, not going to be right in inverted commas, is going to be the saddlecloths and things like that. But you know what? I think you'll be okay. So the Saxons are available in plastic infantry. Their cavalry you can convert. Things like the Chevalier you're going to need to use as spare heads for. But for the Uhlans and the Hussars, you can just do them basically straight out of the box. The Uhlans, I would go with the Russian and Austrian ones, obviously. And the Hussars, you could either use the European ones. I probably would use the European ones, to be honest. Or you could go with the Perry's French as well. Or Warlord French, if you were that way inclined. I'd go for the Perrys. Now, one thing that I have not really addressed so far, I've addressed it as a negative for the Portuguese, I've not really talked about it yet, is that the Bavarians are probably... Well, actually, no, they're not. They're one of the minor nations that has a huge range of different units. So yes, okay, you've got the powder blue, or the very nice cornflower blue. That's the word I'm looking for. Regiments of line, but you've also got some Jaeger as well, who wore dark green. So you've got a bit of a variation there. You could paint those up. Cavalry-wise, you've not just got dragoons like the Portuguese, for instance, but you've got Chevaliers, dragoons effectively. You've also got Uhlans, you've got Hussars. You've got a really nice mix of different troops. You've even got a Garde du Corps if you want to convert one of those up as well. I'm not sure if anyone does models for the Bavarian Garde du Corps, because I don't think they actually took to the field. But you know what? If you're the king of Bavaria, you can send them to the field if you want. So, yeah, you've got plenty of opportunity there. I think the Bavarians are... I think they look fantastic on the tabletop. I think their flags look cool. I think their uniforms look good. I think there's a good range of models out there as well. You can, if you can still get hold of them, you can buy the Hat 28mm ones. They are very slight, but they're cool models. That's what my Bavarian army is mostly made up of. And I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty happy with them. So they don't stand up to like front rank models or something like that. But you know what? As 28mm Bavarians go, they're not bad. They are increasingly hard to get hold of, though. So that for me is my number 2 minor state choice, and it is the Kingdom of Bavaria. Which means that going into number 1 spot, I have already trailed this, I guess, or spoiled it, and it is a joint first placer. Now, there is method behind my madness here, and that is because it is dependent on whether you have a 3D printer or not. If you do not have a 3D printer, then... In fact, no, I'll do it the other way around. If you do have a 3D printer, then there can be only one choice for me for a minor nation, and that is the kingdom. Is it a kingdom? I think it is a kingdom of Wurtemberg. Now, Wurtemberg was a small German state that was made absolutely mega awesome by the by the Napoleon himself. And I say fairly recently, it's probably a while ago now, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a full range of miniatures released by Piano Wargames. Now, Piano Wargames is based in Germany. For this reason, I would suggest that if you are looking to get a Wurtemberg army, you're probably going to want a printer. Because there are no plastic options out there, you're best off getting yourself the files. Now, I will say about them, you could convert them from Austrians. You could just paint Austrians with dark blue coats, and to be honest, 99.9999999% of people, myself included, wouldn't care. They'd be on the tabletop, they'd look awesome. So you can just basically use Austrians. However, the models from Piano Miniatures are absolutely stunning. For me, they are probably the best Napoleonic figures out there. I'm just looking on his website at the moment, and his Wurtemberg Jäger zu Third. There's a guy who's like slashing now with his saber. He is absolutely stunning. Now, it doesn't really match the rest of that group, to be honest. So that's a bit of a shame. But just the whole range is just absolutely phenomenal. You will not be sad if you buy them and print them, and you will definitely have one of the best looking armies on the tabletop. Again, you've got a huge range of troops. You've got your regular infantry in their dark blue and white, a little bit like the Portuguese. You've got your light infantry in green. You've got the officers in, again, blue and white, but they're wearing bicorns, so they're slightly different again. You've got dudes with pink facings. You know I love my troops with pink facings. Cavalry-wise, you've got a good gamut, not as good as the Bavarians, but still pretty good. You've got the mounted grenadiers. You've got Garde du Corps. Again, they didn't necessarily fight in combat, but hey, who cares? You've got Life Jaeger Guard, so light, sort of, a bit like the Blues and Royals. You've got 2 household cavalry regiments. Same with the Wurtembergers. You've got mounted Jaegers, who are effectively dragoons or chevaliers. We've got chevaliers as well. So you've got a whole gamut of them. Now, one thing that I don't believe they had was any hussars, but you can easily add some hussars if you want to. Wurtemberg are a fantastic looking army. They look great on the tabletop. Their colours are nice. They're pretty unusual. You don't see them that often. And again, as with the Bavarians, they fought on both sides. So that's a really important thing for me, is that historically they can fight against pretty much anyone. Now, it must be said that Napoleon had a pretty low opinion of the Wurtembergers, but that just makes them all the cooler. That means that you're coming from behind, and you're going for the victory. So yes, I would say if you have a 3D printer, check out Piano Miniatures. You can buy an entire army's worth of files for £100 very easily, and you can just go absolutely large on that. For me, I backed the Kickstarters, but if I were buying them individually, I'd probably buy the 2 commands for the line infantry, and then the line infantry packs and the grenadier pack. So that's 4 packs at around about £8 each. So, for the same price you'd pay for a battalion of 24 metal models, you can now print infinite numbers of Wurtemberg line and grenadiers. So, absolutely 100% my number one pick for the wargamer who's after a minor estate and has access to a 3D printer is Wurtemberg. But what about mere mortals who don't have such Star Trek level technology? Then there is another choice, worry not, mes amis, because the number one army for retail, shall we say, for minor nation is going to be the Duchy of Warsaw. That's right, we're coming in clutch with the Poles. You knew I couldn't leave them out of a video. Let's dive into why the Poles are my number one pick for the best minor nation. Well, the first thing is, are they a minor nation? You can argue yes or no. They certainly raised a lot of troops. I'm going to say yes, because they didn't fight under their own command, and they took a lot of inspiration from the French. So that's why they're a minor nation. Move on quickly from there. Now, the Perrys have relatively recently brought them out in plastic, and I think the Perrys underwent a sea change when they brought out the mid-war French infantry. the releases from then onwards have been quite different. So with the Duchy of Warsaw, you end up with 2 different boxes. You've got marching posers, and well, you've got elite companies and regular companies. So you can mix and match them to your own satisfaction. I mean, again, you know, they come with chapkers, they come with shakos, they come with all the gubbins that you would expect, bearskins. They come with all the gubbins that you would expect Perry miniatures to come with. And, of course, they do them in a deal as well. So, they absolutely fantastic for that. Infantry, they've got you covered, no problem whatsoever. Cavalry-wise, now, cavalry for the Poles is, again, they've got a really good range. They've got hussars, they've got uhlans, they've got cuirassiers even, and they are all available in plastic as well. My Polish cuirassiers are just Perry's French cuirassiers with yellow facings. There's literally no difference in their equipment. The uhlans, you can very easily use European uhlans. If you want to be really super that bothered, you could buy some French horses and put them on the French saddlecloths. I don't think it really matters. No one's going to know. Just stick them on the old European ones. Job's a good one. Again, you've got plenty of spare chapkers, or you can also buy them separately from Warlord Games. You can buy Vistula Legion ones from Warlord Games if that's down the route that you want to go. So you've got chapkers galore, you've got your uhlans, you've got your hussars, exactly the same as French hussars, just paint them different colours. I think white and blue is one of the regiments of Polish hussars, if I remember right. I think they've got white dolmens and blue policers. They look the absolute nuts anyway. They look really good as well. You've also got High Command. That's available from the Perrys. Again, one of the things with the Duchy of Warsaw, High Command, is that of course it was he was a French marshal. So there's a lot of companies out there that make I'm forgetting his name, Poniatowski. There you go. So he was a marshal. There's plenty of models out there for him, but the Perry's High Command mounted commander set is absolutely gorgeous. If I remember, I'll get a picture of it up here. To be honest, their Uhlans standing is just one of my favourite sets. It's just so nice. The command, the officers like cropping his horses, cropping the grass and things like that. It's not often that you see static cavalry units like this. And I really like that. I know a lot of people don't like them, and that's fine. I can understand why. But for me, I just really like the idea of them standing around. I really like the front rank French lancers who are standing with the lancers in the cups by their feet, and they just look really cool. They look like they're ready for action. I really like it. I really like them. So the Perrys, they do plenty of uhlans in metal, but to be honest, I would just use I'd just use the plastic ones. Sorry, I'm looking at them. It says here the metal ones, they don't come with any horses. It recommends that you buy the French ones in their bits. To be honest with you, I wouldn't even bother. I'd just go with Austrian uhlans, and I'd just swap the heads for spare chapkers. I'd probably I wouldn't even bother. So swap them for spare chapkers. Possibly some of the Vistula Legion ones from Warlord. They are metal, those ones though, so I'd rather avoid them if possible. Artillery wise, you can use Victrix French artillery. They come with like the little weird carrot thing on the front of their shakos, so you can use those quite happily. You've got yourself an entire army in plastic, apart from the command, which you can have in metal. So that for me is why the Poles would be number one. Again, not so much for the side swapping. So realistically, you can only really use them against the coalition. But that said, there's probably a lot more coalition armies out there than there are French. So if you are going to be confined to only having one side, then I would recommend that you take something from the French side, because there's probably more coalition armies out there than there are French armies. But the Poles, fully available in plastic, as I say, except for the command. That you can do a lot worse than get them. Also, they're rock-hard troops. Who doesn't love the chapka and the Polish crimson? Such a beautiful colour. They look great on the tabletop. I've made the mistake of buying them in metal from Morawski Miniatures phenomenally gorgeous models. Quite expensive. I managed to get them in a sale. I had to bully him to sell them to me, which is a bit weird. But they're on my painting. They're on my painting pile. They are the next one underneath my 5 battalions of Russian Guard. So they'll get there at some point. I might do 2 battalions of Russian Guard and then do some Poles. But there you have it. My top 5 list of the minor nations to collect. So back down way ages ago, in 5th place was Brunswick. In 4th place we had the Saxons. 3rd place we had the Portuguese. And I guess with the Portuguese you could probably throw the Hanoverians in there as well. In 2nd place, we had the Bavarians, and joint first, we had the Wurtembergers, specifically from Piano Miniatures, and we also had the Poles, specifically, if I'm honest, from the Perrys. But that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for listening. If you have a minor army of your own, which one is it, and what made you collect that army? If you're interested in collecting a minor army, which one would you go for? I mean, I've done all this stuff, and I'm still thinking I've got my Italian army. I've got some Poles. I've got Wurtembergers. I've got all sorts of minor armies to be getting along with. So I am the last person to ask for advice on this. But who have you got? Who do you think you would like to collect next? Well, that's it. Thank you very much for today's video. Those of you who are able, don't forget there is the live stream every Wednesday at 6 o'clock British summer time. I hope to see you guys then. And if I don't catch you then I hope to see you guys next time.